Ustinov, hello, hello. Yes, welcome back to another live stream of where the Gemini team save the world. Yeah, we come up with these really, really weird names for live streams, and you probably realize I'm actually in a different room. This is a room where actually I used to do my live streams, so where I actually do my therapeutic work as well. It's completely bare except for those boxes over there because still in the process of trying to move. And this room, the therapy room, has become, sorry, I got cat fur all over my face, has become basically the storage room for the time being until I can actually move, and then all of this storage can then go with me to my new happy house. We're very, very much looking forward to. So, first and foremost, hope you're all doing well. I hope you're keeping safe. Hope you're enjoying this lovely weather and you're not getting too burnt out or exhausted. I mean, for England standards, this weather is incredibly hot and uncomfortable and sweaty. I'm in jeans, for Christ's sake. And not only am I wearing jeans, I'm actually wearing, where you can't see them, black jeans. And that's me showing my flexibility. I've pretty much had like a whole week's worth of training and doing videos in dark Jeet Kune Do. So you're going to be seeing a lot more material from dark Jeet Kune Do on my channel as well. But in terms of that, you know, very, very hot weather. So if you're in the UK, you know, hope you're all staying safe. If you're not in the UK, wherever you are, I hope the weather's still cool. Nonetheless, no pun intended, and hope you're enjoying your summer and doing cool things, spending time with family, spending time with friends. If you've got any like annual leave lined up or vacation, if you call it in the States, or holidays abroad, even holidays domestically, you know, hope you'll have a good time. If you're off on your holes and what have you. Pardon me. Oh gosh, what was that? With me today, I have my trusty cat, Turkmenbashi, who is literally just you can actually see him because like the arms in the way, but he's sleeping and he's currently got his back to me. He spent the whole day basically wanting to be with me, and now he's just kind of like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with you. The life of a cat, bless him. Hello, person in live stream. What's your name and where'd you come from? At the moment, we're just talking about like the lovely sunny weather, and the reason why I'm always looking outside of the camera is because I'm looking at this window right behind the laptop and seeing the sun set over the houses of Brighton. Going back to the moving thing, I mean, am I going to miss that? You know, what am I going to miss about Brighton specifically, and what am I going to miss about Sussex in general? And this is a discussion I had with myself actually the other day. I went for I always do my runs along the seafront, use those as opportunities, but I really kind of like use some self-reflection, said to myself, okay, when I do come to move, what am I going to miss? And it really kind of got me thinking, I suppose, because I've always been a nomadic soul, I feel, in my life. I've never really felt anywhere is home for me, and I don't necessarily want this to come across as very sort of like as though I'm speaking in my counselling sessions or whatever, but I generally haven't. You know, when I was a very, very young kid, my family moved to Malaysia. I was 3 years old when we moved to Kuala Lumpur. Dad got a contract with Malaysian Airlines. And even though I was still very young at the time, I didn't feel like any loss towards England. I don't feel as though I built up anything towards England, just being 3 years old, and then going to Malaysia. But I didn't particularly feel that Malaysia was really my home as well. I mean, I was very much aware that, even at that young stage, 3-4 years old, I was very much aware that Malaysia was a foreign country. It wasn't my country. I was very much aware that I was a guest in that country. So even with Malaysia, I didn't necessarily feel much kinship, I suppose, towards Malaysia. That being said, then from there we went to the Middle East. Dad, very much still in the airline industry, he got a job with Emirates. At the time, nobody knew about Emirates. You know, Dubai wasn't, we discussed this in like, I think it was like a previous live stream. Dubai wasn't what Dubai is today. it was basically a backwater, and nobody knew what Dubai was. It didn't have any of the cheap ass kind of buildings that it has now or anything there. It was just a desert. But that's how, I suppose, like the first load of expatriates in the airline industry kind of went to Dubai and went to the Emirates. Emirates was trying to build up its aviation industry. So that's how we kind of like went there. But that was like the very first time I'd actually considered a place home, because I spent a number of years in the Middle East. I was learning Arabic, and one of my regrets I have now is that I didn't learn more Arabic. And I would love to have spent more time actually with the locals as opposed to the expatriate community. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. You know, you can't do anything about it now. So there's no real point in crying that the horse has really bolted the stable. But that was the first time. I mean, I was young, I was growing up, I was feeling the beginnings of an identity for myself. I was very much aware of my surroundings, I was very much aware of my environment. But that was the first time I felt as though that was my first home. And for many years after, when we came to England, I was very, very unhappy in England for a number of years. And my goal in life was just to go back to Dubai. And I had no career goals to go there. I had no ambitions of any kind. All that mattered to me was just I wanted to go there. And what I do there when I got there, I would have just played along, and I'd have done something upon getting there. I would have like crossed that bridge when I very well and truly came to it. But I had no planning beforehand. I just wanted to kind of like get out of England, basically, to go back to what I considered was home. So anyway, after like a number of years in England, I then went to India. India was a changing point for me. You know, it was one of those watershed moments of my life. I was 18. I turned 19 when I was living in India. Yeah, very, very complex part of my life that was. Came back to England and something happened to me, and I ended up just spending a considerable amount of time in England. But when I came back to England, I came back to Sussex, which is where I lived when we came from Dubai. And I ended up staying in Sussex for a number of years in various different parts of Sussex for all the wrong reasons. And then only really going to Brighton, actually, like late 2000s, moved down to Brighton and have stayed here ever since. And for me, it's just a case of change, which I suppose we're getting into grief and bereavement and loss. When you go through bereavement, there are two things which are going to happen. One is a sense of change, and the other is a sense of loss. And the two are very much interconnected. When you lose something, things naturally change. And when you change stuff, you naturally have a loss because you're changing something. So what you had has now become something else, and it's lost what it once was. And that's the thing. I mean, like the last few years, and I feel especially since COVID. So we're actually not even talking about saving the world at the moment. This is just like an introduction kind of thing until Rob comes in, because good old Rob, my American friend, Rob holds the banner of Gemini across the pond in the States. So as soon as like Rob and people get in, we will then start discussing about how we're going to save the world. But I suppose now we're just kind of like, as intro filler, we're talking about like the whole move. But when I first moved to Brighton, it served a purpose. It matched what I needed at that time. But as time went on, things changed. I felt myself changing myself. And like I said, especially since COVID, the last 5 years, I have felt I've changed more the last 5 years than I feel as though I've changed in the rest of my life combined. I feel that's quite reasoned to say that. Various different things have happened. And I remember like January 2020 and what kind of outlook I had in life, what kind of behaviors I had. my thoughts, my feelings were very much different back then than what they are now. And I feel physiologically that sign is showing through from the amount of grey hair which I have. I didn't have this much grey hair 5 years ago. I really didn't. I'm surprised I don't have more like facial marks from thinking and worrying and stresses and all this kind of malarkey. I mean, what I'm doing now, trying to, all move and stuff like that, is I wouldn't have done that 5 years ago. I wouldn't have known where to start. I wouldn't have known the process. On top of that, I don't even feel as though I'd have had the courage to do that. I was very much back then like a creature of comfort, which kind of contradicts what I was saying earlier, because, I feel as though I have a very nomadic soul, and I've always had a very nomadic soul. Different jobs I've been to, different professions I've been to, different friendship groups. But strangely, upon saying that, the contradiction is that I've been in Brighton for a very long time, but wanting to change that is because the things in Brighton which once attracted me to Brighton and what I felt appeal towards in Brighton, I now no longer feel. They don't exist for me anymore. People are still there, but those people are people I don't necessarily socialize with or want to get on with anymore, and I don't necessarily want to spend any more time than what I need to. As a matter of fact, being quite blunt, I don't want to spend time with them at all. They served a purpose at that point in my life. They don't serve it now, and that's just a natural part of life. It's no disrespect to them. It's just how life rolls. Other people will come into your life in the future, which will serve your purpose at that moment in the future. But then a few years down the line after that, they would have served their purpose. They don't necessarily need to be in your life anymore. So I feel that's very much like the philosophical stage. Me staying in Brighton for any longer than what's necessary, I don't feel it's going to do anybody any favors. I don't feel it's going to do myself any favors, and I'm going to be sitting there thinking, what am I doing here? Looking back over the past decade or so, saying like, is this where you see the rest of your life? And I personally don't want to be that kind of person. And like we said with the friends as well, I don't necessarily want to be hanging around the same people that I hung around with like 10, 20 odd years ago. It's just weird. So that, but then we go back to the very beginning, like what kind of things will I actually miss? When I thought about it, when I'm out for my walk, I will miss, probably the biggest thing is the sea. I have always lived near the sea, mostly, for most of my life, in various different places and capacities. So for me, the sea is always one of those sort of like go-to kind of things or themes that I have in my life. If I'm able to access the sea, that's great. To me, it feels as though things are open. It feels as though that there's somewhere to go to. There's a sense of freshness I feel as well about the sea, just like that sense of escape, but not escape as though from a negative perspective. It's just like an escape, like somewhere to go to if you're feeling down or depressed, or you just need that time to yourself. I've always loved the sea. And I feel actually moving out of Brighton, I will miss the sea. I'll miss going for runs along the seafront. I'll miss going for walks on the beach. I'll miss the sea air. I'm very much aware that, living by the sea, you're getting the sea air, you're getting like the salt, the sea salt in the air. And I will miss that. I really, really feel as though I will miss that. And where I'm going to, the place I found, the deal fell through, basically. But the place I found wasn't near the sea. I had to drive for about 10, 15 miles to get to the sea. Now that that deal fell through, I'm looking at other places. Some places which I have found are pretty much on the sea or on the beach, which is great. I've looked at and thought, wow, yeah, great, I can live with that. Some of the places I found aren't by the sea, but they're very, very nice locations in other ways. So you're never going to find your perfect place, and house-wise anyway. So I'm summing up like both pros and cons. Things like, okay, I could get a place which is near the beach, but what am I going to lose in other areas? Or I could go to a place which is not near the beach, but it has everything else that I need and want. It's just lacking the beach. Can I live with that? So you have to have like that compromise. So that's where I am at the moment. What I miss about Brighton is pretty much the beach and the sea. Being able to go for my morning runs along the beach is what I'll miss. I won't miss the city in and of itself. I find Brighton a horrible city. A lot of people rave about it. They're like, this is a great, great city. Can be, but Brighton is very much like a touristy kind of place. It's a young place as well. If you're young, if you're a tourist, Brighton will do you well. There are some, but that being said, there are some horrible, horrible, horrible parts of Brighton which I wouldn't recommend to anybody. Or you could have like certain demographics. You could be from certain demographics, and Brighton will not necessarily welcome you socially, even though it tries to promote itself as being a very diverse, inclusive kind of place. The reality is, I found, having lived in Brighton area for like 15 odd years, it's not. It's really not. So I won't miss Brighton in and of itself, and I feel that what Brighton has, other places have. You know, I mean, it's essentially just like a small city, large town, and it's got what every small city, large town has. There's nothing really unique. I mean, sure, it's got a sea life centre, great, but you're not going to go to that every day, and it's really expensive. It's got a pier, but again, you're not going to go around every day. And actually, Brighton Pier, I don't really like. I think it's a bit shit. It's got this pavilion kind of thing, which is basically just a big museum. Yeah, it looks cool on the outside, but when you're on the inside, it's just like any other museum. So I really, that may seem as though I'm like really peeling the layers away, but I don't. Brighton projects more than what it has, basically. So I won't miss really anything else of Brighton except the sea, which may sound kind of sad. The only thing I'm actually going to miss about Brighton when I leave is the sea. And I can just, you know, wherever I go to, Yorkshire, Scotland, wherever, go onto my YouTube and just type in sea pictures or sea ocean music, and it will come up with the sea. So I'm like, I've not left the sea, I've still got it. So yeah, that's basically what I'll miss, but not much else. And I'm not saying that to be like negative, I'm just saying that as like a matter of fact. I feel that's where I am in my life. Zombie Elvis and all the casual gay sex. Now that's very stereotypical, Ben. How are you doing? Mind you, that being said, I did have a scary episode many years ago in Brighton, in toilets. Long story short, basically I'd arranged to go into city centre Brighton with a group of friends at the time. I got to this venue earlier than they did, because I'm one of these guys that if you say get to a place at 8 o'clock, I'll get there at like 7:15. And then I'll just sit there and drum my fingers because my ADHD is kind of like saying, what the fuck are you doing? But anyway, got to this place early, so I had a drink by myself, and then I went to the toilet, as you do. Went into the guys' toilets, and there was 3 urinals. Now, the one on the left was occupied, the one on the right was occupied, which left the one in the middle, which was free. So I had to go to the one in the middle. You're a guy, you know the etiquette in guys' toilets, stood there, pulled down my zip, pissing into the bowl. The guy on my right then left, he'd finished. The guy on my right, then I saw out of the corner of my eye, he started pleasuring himself, making noises like, ugh. And I was like halfway through doing what I was doing, so I couldn't actually like just stop and go. I was midway through and I was just like, for fuck's sake, only in Brighton. Like, only this is considered acceptable in Brighton. Luckily, nothing else happened of that. You know, I kind of willed the gods to make my wee come out quicker, which it did. Did what I needed to do, and I just left. I don't even think I washed my hands, which is disgusting, but I don't want to be in a toilet with some guy who's going to be pleasuring himself. It's just like, seriously, do get therapy. All good, thanks. Lovely weather. Yeah, you know, it is really, really nice weather. I can imagine it's probably even like hotter for, you know, over in like Bristol area, you know, being quite built up and a bit more inland. But it is good. I've been quite lucky because I've had this week off, and I've basically just been going off and amongst trying to get people in to kind of like view my place, trying to sell it, I've just been going off and doing loads of videos, and I've done a whole load of videos on dark Jeet Kune Do techniques. So you'll be seeing like taekwondo stuff, but then also dark Jeet Kune Do. And dark Jeet Kune Do has gone even more serious. Dark Jeet Kune Do, my outfit for dark Jeet Kune Do now, I've actually found an outfit. It's black t-shirt in the scorching weather, and I'm pointing like over the laptop because the window's there with the sun setting over the hills. And black leather trousers. And, oh yeah, and black fingerless gloves as well. And that's my dark Jeet Kune Do outfit. And I had to go out, well, I didn't have to, but I chose to torture myself by going out into the sun, up at Chanctonbury Ring, trekking up that massive hill to film these stupid videos for dark Jeet Kune Do, just because I'm a sucker. I remember at middle school, there was a taboo about using a middle urinal because it made you gay. Ben, seriously, what is it with you and gays at the moment? The last few live streams, we've been talking a lot about, you know, homosexuality and stuff. We have to be careful what we say. You know, in this day and age, I know it's all tongue-in-cheek, and I'm a libertarian. I believe in freedom of expression. I believe in freedom of speech, provided it's not inciting violence or murder or killing people or anything like this, or any type of extremism. And we covered that in the last few live streams as well. But, you know, there's going to be some idiot somewhere who's probably going to watch this after it's been published, and they're like, oh, they're talking about gays. Oh, I feel so offended. I'm going to report to the police. And sounds like a joke, but people do that. Lucy Connolly, she went to prison for posting something. I didn't even see the tweet, but apparently it was so ridiculous, but she deleted it and she still went to prison. That's how fucked some people, you know, when it comes to offense, people, I feel, choose to get offended by things which they know in their heart of hearts are not offended. But offense is always taken. It's never given. Anyway, kids are so stupid, but perhaps they were onto something. What kids are we talking about? Sorry, I kind of went on a bit of a tangent there, actually. But yeah, kids are stupid because kids need to go to school. And that's like a telltale sign, though. Why do kids need to go to school? Because they're stupid. I don't think I've ever met an intelligent kid. But then how do you measure intelligence? As in, like, emotional intelligence. People could say, you know, you could have common sense, but no academic intelligence. But then I would rather have common sense and no academic intelligence than the other way around. At least then I know that if I was on a desert island, or I needed to fix my toilet or fix my car or change the oils in my car, I'll know I'll be able to do it. Personally. You know, Ben, I always appreciate your presence and everything. You know, you're a cool dude, and you know, you've been a real, you know, solid subscriber for the channel over the years. And you know, obviously we've met up a few times and shared drinks and stuff. So I think you're a cool cookie. So don't take this the wrong way. But I mean, Rob needs to get his ass in here as well, actually, because like as I said, Rob's the American Gemini. He's American little gem. As a matter of fact, next time I see Rob in a live stream, I'm actually going to promote him to like the oh god, how can I phrase this? Rob will be the American representative, or the representative of Gemini in the United States. That'll be Rob's title. He'll love it. Our friend from the colonies. Yeah, the revolutionary. Ungrateful bastards. Oh man, I checked my analytics on my channel the other day. As a matter of fact, let's check my analytics now. My analytics on my channel are very, very perverse and weird. Oh, I've got a notification. What's this? Oh no, it's somebody I'm subscribed to. Hey, it's Thomas Marks. We were talking about him last time. Yeah, he's uploaded something. So it just came up with a notification just saying that he's uploaded something. Sorry, I'm scratching because I've got Turkmenbashi the cat here, and his fur's like all over the place. I'm like really itchy, and obviously with the heat as well, I'm like sweaty. I should start taking this off, but then Ben, you'll probably start thinking I'm gay or something. Seriously, we have to really kind of like stop with those gay jokes. Any law enforcement who are watching this for whatever stupid reason, these are jokes, not meant to be taken seriously. No offense is intended. Disclaimer from me, owner of the channel. Can't believe I'm having to actually say that. Anyway, I was talking about these analytics. Yeah, the analytics are really, really weird. I've always traditionally had most viewers and subscribers to my channel are from the States, which is then closely followed by the UK. Then third, fourth, and fifth place are always changing, but they're all these weird countries. And I say weird, you know, they probably look at the UK and think we're weird, and you know, fair play to them. We are a weird nation. But one stage, I think it was India, was the third country of people who came to view my channel. Then that changed to Turkey, and that was okay because I mean I was uploading a load of videos of my cats, and I kept tagging like Turkmenbashi and Turkey and Turkish van and all this kind of stuff as in the tags. So a lot of people from looking up Turkey probably found my channel. Then it was like Germany, which kind of understand. Then it was in places like Venezuela was one that came up. Nigeria was another one that came up. What was a really weird, I think it's like Sri Lanka came up quite recently, and Turkmenistan was another one. But then Turkmenbashi probably has something to say about that. Yeah, it was just these whack countries. Belarus was another one, and I was looking at this thinking, like, why are all these weird countries coming up? What's going on here? Let me type this in. Oh, so that works. No, it's not actually wanting to show me the analytics. It's just taking really, really, really long. So I can actually tell you what the most popular viewers and subscribers of my channel are. I actually have no viewers or traffic at all from Korea, which is a bit strange when you consider like this is like predominantly a taekwondo channel. I'd expect like some Koreans. Japan was on there once, I think, and that was mostly from like all the Kyokushin stuff I was uploading. Here we go. Let me check the analytics now. It's decided to work. But yeah, our friend from our representative from the New World, he's he's still not in. Dereliction of duty. Maybe I should actually like revoke his Gemini representation in the States. If he doesn't come in by the end of the live stream, I'm going to revoke that and I'm going to have to give it to somebody else. Okay, analytics, audience. Let me see. Okay, yeah, well, here we go. 87% of watch time are not subscribed, and only 12.9% of my views are from subscribers. I mean, fair dues. Age and gender, for the last 28 days, 59.3% of my viewers have been female, whereas 40.7% have been male. Age demographic, 6% 18 to 24-year-olds, 31.1% 25 to 34s, 30.3% 35 to 44, 16.8% 45 to 54, 10% 55 to 64 years, and 5.8% 65 years plus. I don't even know why a 65-year-old would even be watching my channel, to be honest. But the main demographic is usually like the 35 to 44 age range. 97.1% watch my channel with no subtitles. 2.8% have English subtitles, because clearly I can't speak English clearly enough. And 0.1% have Chinese. Well, that's new to me. Okay, we'll go on to the countries next. Are they ahead of us time-wise or behind us in the States? States are behind, and where Rob is, he said he's 4 hours behind. Yeah, because he did complain once, because I went through a series of doing live streams at, I think it was kind of like 5 p.m. UK time, and poor Rob then was like, oh, you know, you keep doing it when I'm at work. And I then estimated, okay, you know, that's like what, 12, 1 o'clock. So yeah, I can understand middle of the day for him. So yeah, he'd be at work. So I thought, okay, if I start doing live streams maybe a bit later, like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., whatever, then it'll give him time to maybe like finish work, and then he can jump on and watch really cool Uber live streams on gemini-tkd-sam channel, which is better than work. But yeah, I need to have a word with Rob and see what we can do to accommodate him. Yeah, what we think, yeah, country-wise, okay, let's bring up the whole demographic of the countries. Oh, geez, okay, just shot in my face. As it stands at the moment, leading, see, these are a bit weird. Okay, leading United States with, well, I'm not even going to do percentages, to be honest. I just read it down. Okay, so first place, United States. Second place is Japan, which suits me fine because of the Kyokushin, the karate videos I upload. I can understand that makes sense. Third place is Italy. Fourth place is United Kingdom. So UK has slipped down. Fifth is Turkey. And on the demographics here, Turkey is spelt wrong. Followed by Australia, followed by Germany, followed by Iraq. That's got to be a fucking joke. 51 views from Iraq, 1.2% of the views. Followed by India, followed by Brazil, followed by Mexico, followed by Spain, followed by Canada. Poor old Canada's only got 9 out of how many total views? When was this? Last 28 days, 4,366 views on my channel. 19 came from Canada. Oh, poor Canada. Bless. But at the end of the day, in all seriousness, you know, everybody who like views my channel, I appreciate. You know, I appreciate the time that they take to kind of come and watch something, whether it's martial arts related, cats related, whatever, or just want to chip in, learn about Zoroastrianism on live streams or something like that. All viewers are, you know, more than welcome. You know, we've actually kind of like gone way off topic because the focus, the concept of this live stream, which I feel we should now draw that back into from the periphery into the center. It's about how Team Gemini can save the world of martial arts. Because martial arts world at the moment, in the UK at least, is naff. It really is bad, and it needs a good whoosh. And me being a former professional Dom for 6 years, I feel as though I can do that. And that's why I've got leather trousers and I've got leather fingerless gloves and other stuff. Just ask the other person in the live stream, the stalker. They know all about it. Oh, hello, Tekmanbashi. Sorry, did I wake you? Poor cat. So there's a number of things. Sorry, his fluff's gone everywhere again. There's a number of things in the martial arts world at the moment which I feel are bad and need addressing urgently. Otherwise, martial arts is just going to fail and nobody's going to take martial arts seriously, which I feel if you're of sound mind, you wouldn't really want to take martial arts seriously anyway. But we have real bros in trouble. We have sisters being accosted on the street. We have like kids growing up with social anxieties and cognitive malfunctions, all because of bad martial arts tuition. And I feel the stalker's gone as well upon saying that. Maybe I scared them. Maybe they were part of the bad martial arts problem. It's plausible. So the bad martial arts, which I feel need to be addressed. There is a, let's start stateside. We'll start from America and work our way over. In Pennsylvania, there is a school that claims to teach taekwondo. It's called Eagle Fang. And I'm not talking Eagle Fang from like the Cobra Kai series. I'm talking, it's the name of the school is called Eagle Fang. And outside of their dojang, they have these giant inflatable, like Stay Puff, Sugar Puff people, whatever you want to call them, like the ones from Ghostbusters. And they stand outside the dojang and they're filled up with hot air and they're flapping around. And yeah, you think, okay, this is meant to be like a traditional Korean dojang. Why have you got this goofy ass shit outside your dojang? It's garish. It's horrible. Just get rid of it and get something traditional, because that's what you're claiming to teach. The instructor himself, I think he claims to be a 9th Dan, I believe, with one of the original kwons of taekwondo called Changmu Kwon. He doesn't have the behavior of a 9-year-old. He goes on to, and I'm speaking from experience here, he goes onto people's YouTube channels and he leaves nonsensical comments. He'll see what you've actually uploaded video-wise, and he did this with me. And he came onto my channel and he criticized the video, and that's fine. I can handle criticism on my videos. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, and that's part of being online. You are going to get some pushback. No problem. But what he was saying was quite nonsensical, and I corrected him. I sent a response to his comments and just said, look, I think what you're saying is a bit out of order. You've shown no respect. Also, what you're saying is incorrect. So that's not cool. He then came back with something else, which was just as narky. So I ended up blocking him. He then got a friend or a student of his to then post on the same video saying pretty much exactly the same as what he'd said. And I sent a response to this person and said, like, that's strange, because only the other day somebody left a comment almost identical to yours. And they came back and they're like, yeah, I know this person. Yeah. Always kind of malarkey. So I suspect this so-called 9th Dan, who, by the way, is the size of like George Dillman. George Dillman, an obese version of George Dillman, basically. I suspect he got this person to leave bad comments on my videos. And I went onto Facebook, and this is when I had Facebook, and I was generating traffic to my site by posting my videos on Facebook groups, martial arts related Facebook groups, to get views and traffic to my YouTube. And then I was getting people commenting on those who are basically saying the same thing as this Eagle Fang instructor. So I was like, okay, so I suspect this Eagle Fang guy has gone around in his circle, directing all these people towards my channel, so they could then bomb my channel with trash talking and smack. So that is a bad case of martial arts, and that's why the guy who is like the instructor of this school, let's call him King Louis for sake of conversation. King Louis is a bad martial arts instructor with a bad martial arts institute, and that's why I believe Eagle Fang Martial Arts in Pennsylvania, USA, should be closed down, and that instructor should be called out. So that's putting wrongs to rights on one of the very bad martial arts instructors that we need to talk about. And I'm so glad I got that off my chest, because that had been in my mind for many years. I even did a video about it on my YouTube, actually. It was like my very first trolls I had on my channel, and I actually did a whole video about that. I think he complained about it. I'm sure he saw it, because it came up saying like, yeah, this breaches YouTube's terms or something like that. And the reason for it was from this Eagle Fang Academy, which is very strange. Can't find anything about it online, just stuff from Cobra. Hold on. Let me see. Eagle Fang. There you go. I misspelt Eagle Fang. But the instructor, when I don't mind being corrected, because nobody's perfect, and the more you learn, the more you realize how much you didn't know. And I like to think of myself as being mature enough that if somebody was to correct me, I look at myself and think, okay, that's an opportunity for me to grow. I've obviously been doing something which is not the correct way, or may even be a different way, and I haven't been aware of that. So if somebody corrects me, I look and think, actually, I should be thanking you, provided it is done in the proper manner. And by the proper manner, I mean respectfully, with dignity and courtesy. And this guy didn't have that. He came out, the first thing he said, I remember like the first sentence he had on this video, which I posted, was, everything about your technique is wrong. So, okay. Just to say that in and of itself, it's like, well, who are you? Seriously, I mean, yeah. It's not the approach I would take. And then also as well, for a 9th Dan to then go around and get his friends, his students, and all this kind of stuff to basically bomb my channel, basically saying all exactly the same kind of stuff as him. It's like, what kind of instructor are you? Not only that, what kind of human being are you for you to do that, to get your students who were, from what I gathered of their pictures, much younger than him, to do that, I think is, 1, it's childish, 2, it's immature, 3, it shows insecurity, and 4, I believe it says something about him and where his head's at. To do that, I think is really, really sad. And when I actually saw a picture of this guy for the first time, I feel as though maybe he could perhaps like concentrate on doing a few sit-ups himself. You know, and that's also, I don't like to insult people's physique because I don't know what their journey is. I don't know what they've been through. But I look at them and think, you know, before you start pointing fingers, always remember there's 3 pointing back. So anyway, that's Eagle Fang. You know, I've got fly buzzing around myself now. Really humid in here. I've got the window open as well, just behind the laptop to kind of get some air on it, but it doesn't seem to be doing much. So anyway, we've discussed Eagleville. Eagle Fang were bad for the martial arts. We've put them right. Gemini has saved the day by exposing them. Next, we have Mr. Turbinator. Now, Mr. Turbinator, we're going now to England. Mr. Turbinator is a former UK British Primacy champion who likes to wear green turbans. He claims not to do taekwondo anymore, which is fine, but he claims to do these like weird, really weird, esoteric, spiritual martial arts from Southeast Asia that he learned apparently in the jungle. As a matter of fact, he said he learned it in Malaysia, where I spent 1 year of my childhood. But he's basically now put himself to be this guru. And again, I remember a few years ago on my channel, I did put out a video about pseudo-spiritual martial arts gurus. And I don't understand why people in martial arts give themselves these kind of titles, or put themselves out to be these mystical, omniscient kind of, well, gurus, I suppose. You know, I just don't get it. Personally, to me, I find it quite cringy. I find the whole sort of master, grandmaster, supreme grandmaster, all this kind of stuff, I've never really taken to that. When I say never taken to it, I've never have. But this guy, yeah, he's now teaching like Silat and internal Chinese martial arts, which is cool, but just doing it in such a manner where he likes to wear his green turban and say that he learned all this in the jungle. It's almost like a Frank Dux kind of thing, you know, go to mystical depths of Southeast Asia when no white person has been and learn some of this mystical kind of martial arts kind of stuff. It's smacks of pseudoism for me, and Dadaism. And upon saying that, I saw his Facebook page quite recently, and I found it so off-putting because his whole Facebook page is basically politics. Sure, you're allowed your political opinion, as we discussed in previous live streams. But if I was a prospective student and I went to kind of suss you out, I found out about you, I heard about you, well, I'm going to check your Facebook page, just see what kind of things are on there. And all you've got is just political spiel. And he's a Republican, he doesn't like the monarchy. Again, fair enough. But he's then basically put on his Facebook stuff like, if you support the monarchy, you support like child molesters and all this kind of stuff. And he's putting this kind of stuff. And also he went to university at the most anti-Semitic university in the UK. And I know that as a fact. So I look and think, you're putting this kind of stuff on your Facebook page. I personally find that distasteful. I find that very off-putting. I find it deplorable. I find it unnecessary. And also, you've lost a student, prospective student, because I could actually want to come and train with you. But then if I'm seeing all this stuff on your Facebook, it's now making me a bit concerned and a bit worried. It's like, my God, you know, am I going to sign up for martial arts lessons? Or am I going to get you dressed in your green turban, spouting some sort of like neo-Marxist ideology? I don't know. I'd rather not find out about that. And all his students, from what I've seen on his videos, are the archetypical white, middle-class, champagne socialist kind of types. The type who'll go to Glastonbury and watch Bob Villain. Frank Dux, what a guy. No, he's not. They made a whole like movie about him, didn't they? Bloodsport. Politics and martial arts is such a bad combination. Hull? No. Is Hull really that bad as a university? The one I was talking about was SOAS, School of Oriental and Asian Studies in London. It was recently rated as like one of the most anti-Semitic universities in the UK. And I just typed into Google and it will come up with stuff. And he went there. But yeah, politics and martial arts, it really is. And like I say, it's like anything in life. You know, you can have your opinions about anything, ranging from what kind of food you like, right down to religious persuasion, anything. Doesn't matter. But please don't bring it into martial arts training. When I was teaching professionally, I never brought my own personal prejudices into the lessons. As far as I was concerned, students were there, they were paying me for me to teach them martial arts. They were not paying me to hear my views about Lenin or Trotsky or Engels, you know, people like this, Durkheim. And I don't see what the point is. Why then use your students to be your political audience? I don't get it. I really don't. But that really put me off when I found that Facebook page, and I was just like, my God, you know, this. He didn't come across as this mystical pseudo know-all guru. He came across as a complete nut job, quite literally. And that being said, actually, I like to see myself as very sort of like liberal. Like I said, I'm a libertarian kind of guy, and I see myself as very tolerant. But when I see stuff like that, I just look and think, what's going to happen? I mean, am I going to come to one of your lessons? Am I going to let it slip that I might not agree with that kind of stuff myself, or I'm Jewish or something like that, and how am I going to get treated? You know. So anyway, that's another wrong that the Gemini conglomerate have put right in this live stream. See, we're saving the world one martial artist at a time. It's great. Problem is, martial arts is usually based on hierarchy. It tends to limit critical thinking. Yeah, that as a slight offshoot, I don't like that whole sort of, you know, I'm your master, you're the student, so you do what I do, or you do what I say. Sorry, I got that wrong. But, you know, the whole don't question your sensei, all that kind of approach. I don't agree with that. I really don't. Even when I was like managing mental health units and stuff like that, I was still encouraging critique. I was still encouraging feedback from my staff team who are under me in pay grade, under me in experience, and I was still encouraging them to give me feedback because they may have seen something which I didn't. I was in no way kind of like abusing my position. I feel that's what a lot of martial arts do. And it seems to be this sort of like this again, the quasi tradition, you know, don't question me. Well, why not? Because, you know, it's part of karate tradition that you don't question your sensei. You learn by questioning. You learn by being curious, being inquisitive. Why is this the way it is? Why does this happen? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this in a particular way? Why do we wear these dobokes? This kind of stuff. You know, going back to like my experiences when I was doing taekwondo, I mean, the Burke of an instructor that I had hated being challenged. Absolutely hated it. We almost came to blows in one lesson. Long story short, he wanted to like teach a counter technique for a roundhouse kick to the body. The technique itself, the counter technique, sucked. And I actually put up my hand and said, this technique doesn't work. I wasn't trying to be rude. I was just making a point because I tried it in sparring and it didn't work. It was too slow, what this guy was trying to teach. And he hated that. And I'm sure he wanted to kick me out of the lesson. In retrospect, that may not have actually been such a bad thing had he have done so. I would have gone off and made Gemini from an earlier year. Yeah. So the next person as well, actually, we need to get through this list because it's quite a long list. But the next one I feel as though we need to actually put straight is somebody from the UK, the Zara Pythian. Yes, I ran into Zara at quite a few different competitions I've done. And we all know how that story ended with Zara. So point being is not so much a critique at herself, but basically that's sort of the whole culture. I was thinking about this the other day, between 2010, 2013, yes. But between 2010, 2013, Gemini came into existence in 2009. I was still very young, and I really wanted to kind of experiment with other styles. So between 2010, 2013, the early 2010s, I was taking Gemini off to all these competitions all over England, mostly in the Midlands, and they were all kind of these open style, freestyle kind of martial arts kind of events. I wouldn't even call them martial arts events because I suppose if you're looking at martial arts from a strict perspective in terms of uniforms and the discipline and all this kind of stuff, the ritual tradition, I know we've just bashed tradition, but that kind of thing, there was none of that at any of these competitions. There were all these kind of semi-contact, light continuous contact, which is never light, kickboxing events, and all the people would always wear these really weird kind of colors, multicolored kind of uniforms. Weren't even martial arts uniforms, they were all this satin material and all this kind of stuff. So I don't really know what you want to call them, just outfits, I suppose. Costumes. But I was taking Gemini off to loads of these. And I look back now and think, my fucking God, I was what was I thinking? Why? We could have been going off to all these traditional Kukiwon, taekwondo certified events, WKF, karate certified events. No, I dragged all these team members up and down the country going to these horrible, horrible sport karate, sport kickboxing kind of events. And all these teams that went to them were all these kind of borderline McDojo teams. And they all kind of had Zara ethos and culture around them. It was all very much sort of survival of the fittest kind of mentality. It was all sort of, if you kick your opponent onto the floor, well, so what? They deserved it. I've been to a lot of those competitions actually, and it was the people on the sidelines who I found worse than the competitors, because the ones from the sidelines were chanting stuff like, go on, punch him in the face, little Stevie, or Casey, his hands are down, kick him in the head. Little Casey's only 5 years old. It's what the hell is wrong with you? But that's kind of this environment which Zara was very much a part of. The worst competition I ever went to, I don't know if you saw this video, Ben, but I did a video about it a few years ago called The Worst Competition I Ever Went to. And it was this competition in Nottingham. It was called the Martial Arts Show Live. And it was run by our good friend. And it was advertised as though it was going to be filmed for TV. It was filmed because Zara's husband was walking around with a big camera on his shoulder like some early 90s beatbox boy from New York. But I never saw the footage online. As a matter of fact, I think now what we do know about that couple, I dread to think where that footage ended up. There were a lot of children at that competition. Read between the lines. But anyway, I went there and Gemini had a 4-member team, including myself, me, Firestarter Dude, Gina, and Emski. From the moment we went on the road, I could speak about this competition till the cows come home. It was awful. As a matter of fact, I think I've told you this story when we first met up, the whole Firestarter competition. And I swapped his CD. He wanted to do a performance to Firestarter by Prodigy, and I swapped his CD around, and it was the Berserker, some horrible grind band from Australia. He didn't even notice. It was that competition, but it was so bad, and it was full of like people wearing these horrible garish outfits, people doing these weird elaborate musical forms. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, but I'm not going to go into the details. It's just repeating myself again. But I still have nightmares about this. It wanted me to quit martial arts competitions. I was so disgusted, and by the end of it, I pretty much sacked the whole team. It's like, I don't want to come out with any of you guys again for various different reasons. But that was kind of the whole culture that Zara promoted with these Midlands-based teams, which is horrible. Just horrible. I don't feel as though martial arts people run like that. And again, that's just one person's opinion. But I really don't. You know, just bright, colourful, elaborate, horrible competitions. Ugh. I'm getting shivers just thinking about it. That being said, as far as I'm aware, I think she's still got 5 years to do. Vic's got considerably longer. We're safe for another few years, Ben. And hopefully by that time I'd have gone off to Oz anyway, and I'll be living life on like a beach in Perth or someplace like that. And yeah, that competition would just be a very, very bad memory. That being said, I feel we should move on to the next one, which is actually going to be the lanky blonde dude. I don't even know if I told you about the lanky blonde dude. Nice. Well, no. Lanky blonde dude's not nice. Lanky blonde dude is a guy who taught me dark Jeet Kune Do. Well, he didn't teach me dark Jeet Kune Do. He tried to teach me Jeet Kune Do. What I now know is that Jeet Kune Do was just fake. I know we can get into a big discussion about what Jeet Kune Do is and isn't. You know, some people say it's whatever you want it to be. So therefore, how can it be something if it's only your personal interpretation? And yeah, that's a discussion for another time. But this guy, blonde lanky dude, I met him when I worked in with the Firestarter dude. We all worked together. As a matter of fact, blonde lanky dude employed me. Quids in. So he employed me, and he saw my CV that I did taekwondo. So he was like, "Oh, great! You do taekwondo. I do Jeet Kune Do." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Oh, maybe we should train together sometime." Okay, yeah, great, whatever. And he was really tall and really lanky, and he was blonde, hence the name. I'm sure you probably guessed. But he would say really, really weird things. I mean, he came up to me sometimes and he'd say stuff like, "Oh yeah, my instructor made me train on broken glass the other night. Yeah, I've got feet of iron. Yeah, I killed a cow with a golf ball. Yeah, I got accosted on Brighton Beach by a guy with like long ponytail, and he did leopard style kung fu, and yeah, I beat him up." And he kept saying all this nonsense. And I remember like one day he did come to one of my lessons when I used to run Shiva Soviet. He came along and he was saying this kind of stuff at a break. Yeah, I trained on broken glass. And the other students were just like looking at him thinking like, who the hell is this guy? And one of them said at the end of it, also called Sam. He said, I remember him well. Little Sam, I liked him. He came up to me, he was like, wow, this guy, all the things he says, he must be some sort of like martial arts king. So it kind of became a bit of like an in-joke that we called him like King Jeet Kune Do, just based on purely what he said. But then other times I'd like message him, but hey, lanky blonde dude, obviously he didn't call that to his face. But I was like, hey, do you want to come and do some training? I've got the day off, we can hook up somewhere, we can bring some sparring stuff and just roll. And he'd be like, oh dude, I'd love to, but ... insert excuse here. And there'd always be an excuse. And it would always be like, it wouldn't just be like, yeah, thanks, but I just don't feel up for it today, which would be fine, plausible. We all get down days. But it was stuff like, yeah, I'm in the doghouse. Yeah, I haven't had dinner. Yeah, I'm too cold. Yeah, I'm too hot. Yeah, I'm on jury duty. Yeah, I'm on that time of the month. It's just like, seriously, if you're not interested, please just say. I'd rather you just say, as opposed to have to kind of like make up this weirdness. But one day he did train, and I was holding pads for him. He was like, he wanted to do his like Wing Chun chain punches or something, and I was holding the pads. And he was coming in, and he was like, he was missing some of the pads left, right, and center, and all this kind of stuff. And the person, the team member at the time, who was filming, made a comment just like, "Oh, you know, come on, lanky blonde dude. It's like, you know, you fucked up," as a joke. And lanky blonde dude snapped, and he just like threw off his gloves, and he was like, "Yeah, don't like being filmed." And he was getting like really like uptight. And me and the other Gemini member at the time, we looked at each other and we're like, "What the fuck?" He was like, "Seriously?" It's like, "What's wrong with him?" And yeah, very, very bizarre. But he would always claim that he was trained by a character who claims to be a student of Dan Inosanto, who himself was a student of Bruce Lee. So he kept claiming this Bruce Lee lineage. But yeah, my instructor trained with a student of Bruce Lee. Yeah, so I'm Bruce Lee lineage, should be taken very seriously. And I was like, no, you're some goon who clearly has anger management issues. Oh, that's another thing as well, actually. His wife, who I was quite close with, told me that apparently he went into like public bathroom once and attacked a hand dryer. And I was like, why did he do that? And she said he just wanted to prove a point. He's like, he said, oh, I reckon I can beat that up. I said, well, what's beating up a hand dryer which can't even punch back? What are you proving from that? You're just proving you're being a dick. But he did it, apparently. And you know, she said, oh, he's got anger management, and you know, I wish he went to therapy. And at this time, I really didn't want to get involved. It's like, okay, you know, I don't really understand why he's telling me this. I wasn't even that close to him. The only reason we were kind of like even knew of each other was purely just because of the martial arts stuff. But whenever I asked him if he wanted to come training, 9 times out of 10, he said no, because he had these stupid ass excuses. And then he still said that he was a student or like a descendant of Bruce Lee. So yeah, that's the lanky blonde guy. I found actually his YouTube channel actually quite recently. He was doing like a lot of like acting. I think he wanted to follow in Bruce Lee's footsteps and become an actor. So yeah, I left a comment on that, just basically saying hi, and I think he deleted it. So he, you know, clearly doesn't like me. Can't think why. I'm a lovely person. But yeah, that's lanky blonde guy. So okay, Stalker, who keeps coming to the live stream, say hello. Stalker, go away. Then I have a stalker, and it started out as a bit of a joke, but I actually do have a stalker, which I may do in the next live stream actually. And they know that I know because, well, I can explain that in the next live stream. It doesn't matter. At the moment, we're going to talk about the one who does really need saving in the martial arts world. Yes, it is the pro Hamas Kung Fu guy. As a matter of fact, there's a number of people who could actually get this spot, I suppose, but you know, we only have like a limited amount of time actually. But no, this person, I said, I mean, I knew them, and we discussed this a little bit on the other live stream. They've been a subscriber of my channel, and they had commented on my channel quite a lot, but then they seemed to have like some sort of like meltdown because they realized that I was Jewish, and that was it. They then left a comment on one of my videos or posts. I've forgotten which one it even is now. Basically saying like, oh, you know, why am I supporting Israel? I should, you know, think about the genocide. And I remember they quoted genocide or something, but well, not something they did quote genocide. But I looked and thought, okay, well, you're making an assumption. Just because I'm Jewish, you automatically assuming that I support Israel. And this is a guy I didn't even like. Again, politics and martial arts don't mix. I didn't tell this person what my political persuasion was. I didn't tell them where my sympathies were in terms of Israel and Palestine or anything like that. All he knew was that I was Jewish. But we'd known each other for quite a long time beforehand, and he didn't know that. But it was literally just like a conversation. You know, we met up, you know, we rolled with each other and all this kind of stuff. And then I just mentioned it in conversation, and it wasn't even like a sly, subtle kind of thing. I just mentioned it as part of the conversation. I wasn't trying to get anything out of it. And this guy then like just goes nuts. Yeah, he said like, oh, you know, you must be completely off your rocker if you believe that Israel are not committing a genocide. And that for me was a bit weird. But even before that, I became a little bit concerned about this guy because he visited my channel more than I visited his, which is fair enough. But the times when I did visit his channel, I would see certain things. I generally didn't think the content was actually that good. I didn't say this to the guy because I thought, okay, what he's doing is clearly working for him, and who am I to judge? There's a lot of stuff I do on my channel which a lot of people look at and think that probably doesn't work for them, and that's fair enough as well. But this guy was doing stuff which I generally didn't think was that good quality. But I thought if it rolls for him, fair play. He's obviously getting something out of it, so I'll respect that. But then I saw a post, he was having an argument with somebody on one of his videos. And I think this person he was arguing, if I remember correctly, they made a reference to Ben Shapiro, the commentator. And the Kung Fu guy then responded to that and basically said something like, yeah, I bet you're, what was it now? Yeah, I bet you're a Jordan Peterson fan as well. A Jordan Peterson fanboy as well. And I quite like what Jordan Peterson has to say. I mean, I understand that he's one of those figures, you'll either like him or you're not. And he'll be very polarized. It'll be like you either like him a lot or you don't like him a lot. I feel that a lot of what he says does make sense, but I can appreciate what he says and not necessarily appreciate him as the person. But anyway, that's besides the point. That's my opinion, which I'm not bringing into what these two are arguing about. But anyway, Kung Fu guy mentioned that. He said, like, you know, I bet you're just like a Jordan Peterson fanboy. And that was the first time I kind of like clocked, and I was like, okay, that's a bit of a strange thing to say. And why would you just make that assumption just because somebody's mentioned about Ben Shapiro? So my suspicions were first raised there. Then a bit later on, he had a go at me for being Jewish. I don't personally see that as a crime, but each their own. He then unsubscribed to me. And I was like, okay, fair enough. If you're going to do that, then a bit childish, but I'll unsubscribe as well, because I really don't want to see your stuff kind of like coming out on my YouTube feed saying, like, oh, this is a video you might like to see, because it's from somebody who clearly doesn't think the same about my stuff. So I unsubscribed. But occasionally, YouTube, the algorithm is weird, and it would still recommend videos from this guy. And I think that's probably just because we've been subscribed for quite a long time beforehand. So I then was like, you know what, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to go and just look at one of these videos just for old time's sake. So I did. And I think this guy had kind of like degenerated very much into a very angry, opinionated kind of guy that I feel we get a lot in martial arts these days. And all his videos basically seem to be shorts. There was like no more tuition or anything like this. It was just these shorts of him trash talking smack about other channels, and he'd upload videos of certain things, or criticizing Kung Fu, criticizing Tai Chi, Wing Chun, whatever. And it would literally just be like him with his head superimposed, and he's basically talking about stuff. Or somebody would leave a comment on his page which he didn't agree with, and he'd take a screenshot of that comment, and then he'd be like trash talking that. And I looked and thought, you know what, I'm actually kind of glad that I did unsubscribe, because it really showed me another side. And I feel that he may have learned something about me being Jewish. I learned something about him, which I feel was actually probably not a very nice person, you know, underneath it all. Yeah, it seemed very, very insecure. And when I see people like that, I do kind of like look at that as very much insecure. They're trying to compensate for something, or they feel that if somebody trash talks their practice martial art, they take it as a personal offense. Taekwondo is my base style. you know, it's the first martial art I learned. I think Taekwondo is shit. You know, I'll be the first one to criticize Taekwondo. It really is shit. And the state of Taekwondo, I could do a video about it, is fucking awful. It's disgusting. Somebody else was to say that, I'd let them. You know, it's your prerogative. But this guy was like, no, very staunch. There was a far-left self-defense classical going around Bristol. They made inquiries about using our gym. Never trained with them. Met one of the female trainers, 4'11", 250 pounds, green hair. I'm going to hazard an educated guess here and assume that they're going to assume that all assailants are white males, English, far-right thugs. Yeah, I know of a few like-minded people, especially like I said, like down the Brighton way. Yeah, she was so insufferable. I think she annoyed a lot of people. I went to a Choi Kwang Do lesson about 10, 11 years ago, and there was a girl there that I was paired up to spar. Now in Choi Kwang Do, sparring is not the same as if like boxing sparring. Boxing sparring, you know you're going to work up a sweat. Choi Kwang Do sparring, it makes shadow boxing look strenuous. But anyway, I was paired up with this lady who was, again, I don't know her height, but she was significantly shorter than me. And she was like doing this Choi Kwang Do stuff, and I waited for her to finish this long, elaborate combo. And as soon as she landed, I was then like, right, okay, come in, jab, cross, pivoted on my lead foot, come around like to the side of her head and did a hook. None of my hits landed, and I deliberately pulled all my punches. I just wanted to show what I was going to do in that situation. She didn't like it. The instructor saw me do that. The instructor pulled me over and was like, no, that's too aggressive. But I didn't make contact. How was that aggressive? That was showing control, which is meant to be one of the tenets of Choi Kwang Do, or any Korean martial art, self-control. I watched her flail around on a punching for 30 seconds. I thought she was going to have a stroke. I saw this thing recently on YouTube. Somebody actually said, what kind of things do you... It was about seminars. Yeah, you are going to run a seminar, but you're going to bring people from different styles in to run the seminar with you. What kind of people are you looking for? And I said, I'd like anybody with practical hands-on experience, because I'd like to know that what they're teaching is stuff they've done and has been proven to work, whether it's point sparring tactics, self-defense strategies, whatever. That's what I'd like to know. I'd like to know that the teacher who's teaching me has used their stuff, and they know, because they've used it, they know it works. That's what I'd like. So when you get these people like you're describing, Ben, it's like these self-defense kind of people, and just look and think, you know, have you actually used this stuff? Go, well, no. Okay, so how do you know it works? Well, I saw it in a YouTube video. So, okay. And that's why like the tutorials I do quite often, I'll show like a combo or something in training. Then I'll show the combo in sparring, because then it shows, yes, I have used this. So then I don't get people coming up to me asking questions like, will this work in sparring? A Choi Kwang Do guy did that on one of my videos, though. About axe kicks. He was like, will this work in a street encounter? And I said, try it. Try it and find out and get back to me. He never did. We don't spar because it's not realistic enough. One of her gems. It's not realistic enough. The sparring, that's about as close to realism as you're going to get. Oh, and boxing isn't good for self-defense. We use Aikido. Right. My God. Ben, I think you've just given me an idea for the next live stream, actually. But the thing is, I've never actually been to an Aikido class, so I don't actually want to start like saying stuff about Aikido, because I don't feel as though I have that practical qualification. Like Choi Kwang Do, I'll happily criticize because I've been to Choi Kwang Do class. I know it's bullshit. I've been to karate classes. I'm not saying karate is bullshit. I have a lot of respect for karate, but I like to think that I can recognize what can and what cannot work from basic karate. Same as taekwondo. Same as like very, very basic self-defense. you know, some stuff that I could do on my students, I wouldn't use on this coked up madman who's high on drugs. Aikido. Okay. No, that's interesting. See, I feel stuff, I suppose, point being, stuff like this I feel should be called out. And I know a lot of people say stuff like, oh, you know, we could just put it on YouTube and say, oh, this is fake. But it's like, when you actually know instructors, when you train with instructors who are actually saying stuff like this, they're setting their students up to fail. They're giving their students like a false sense of security, making them feel empowered for stuff that they're not powerful enough to do. And saying stuff like this, like, we don't spar, that is like an ultimate red flag. I love sparring, I really do. And I was thinking about it today, it's like, sparring does not mean that you are a violent person. You can spar and have fun, like what we've done in our challenge spars. I mean, they were hardly, I'd say, knockout material, but who cares? You know, at the end of the day, it was us having fun, showing what we could do at a basic level, but doing it in a respectful manner. I mean, that's what I love sparring. It's a self-expression, but then it can be taken up a notch to actually make it more realistic. And it's how you can test the stuff that you've been taught to see if it will actually work. It's the ultimate testing ground without getting your face smashed in. I don't know a lot about Aikido. It looks interesting and all, but nothing like an actual fight. Yeah. When I trained with Niall, he taught probably about 3 Aikido techniques. I mean, he kept saying that Aikido was one of his favorite martial arts, but I mean, if I was given a choice, like somebody said, okay, Sam, you know, I'm going to give you like a selection of 5 martial arts, which one would you like to take? And one of them was Aikido. I'd probably ignore that one, to be honest, and choose something else which was offered to me. But yeah, from what I remember of those Aikido techniques which were taught to me, is that they needed a lot of repetition. Aikido is one of those things where I feel it's almost like a lifelong journey. You need to spend so much time doing these techniques to perfection. And if you don't have a partner with you, your Aikido is not going to work, because Aikido is reliant on your opponent's energy, which is what Aikido means. Harmonizing energy, of a way of harmonizing energy, but it's all based on what your opponent does, your opponent's momentum coming forwards. You use that momentum against them. And if you don't have a partner, you're not going to do that. So it involves a lot of repetition. And then if you get something like, say, for instance, Krav Maga, which is actually designed to be very like bam, to the point. And the Krav Maga, I don't know that much Krav Maga, but Krav Maga techniques I do know are very short, very sharp, not elaborate, but they're not designed to be elaborate. They're designed to just be to the point, which is personally what I prefer. You know, if somebody was coming at me in the street, really wanting to do me harm, I don't want to be dancing around them or waiting for that opportunity to use their momentum against them. I'd rather just get in there and be like, right, okay, I'm going to put you down in 2 seconds. That's it. That's just my personal philosophy. Anyway, Ben, that being said, I feel as though we have put the world to rights, or at least semi to rights. We've corrected some ills from various different martial arts. We've had Mr. Eagle Fang, we've had the blonde lanky dude, we've had Zara, we've had Mr. Turbinator. Like I said, there's so many other people we could have like explored and flushed out, but we'll be here pretty much all night, to be honest. And a lot of them you kind of like know the backstory of as well. Firestarter dude, Mr. White Hippopotamus, our good friend, my abusive instructor. But I feel we put to right the ones who need to be put to right immediately in a nice, light-hearted manner. The negative news, Rob hasn't come in. So I'm going to have a very, very stern word with Rob next time I see him. I'm going to be revoking his representation for the Gemini team in the States. Yeah, God. Colonials. Can't colonize anybody these days, can you? But Ben, seriously, if you've got any like other suggestions for like videos or ideas for live streams, then please do let me know. I mean, I'm always like trying to think of ideas and what have you for like next streams, and for what people kind of like want to be interested in seeing and learning about. Sorry, Token Beshi. In the meantime, thank you for joining, as always. Hope you have an awesome evening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Continue to stay safe, train hard, as I know you do, and keep beating up Aikido people in a nice way. I'm not condoning violence, but I'm sure you know what I mean. Peace out, Ben. Catch you later.